Most people grow up believing that bad habits exist because something is wrong with them. From an early age, they are taught that discipline is a matter of character and that failure to change means weakness, lack of willpower, or even moral failure. This belief quietly shapes how people see themselves. Each time they fail to break a habit, they internalize shame and reinforce the idea that they are broken in some way. The Kaizen philosophy completely rejects this perspective. In Japanese, thought habits are not personal flaws. They are systems of behavior that have been repeated long enough to become automatic. Every habit, including those that now cause harm, once served a purpose. It provided comfort, distraction, relief, or stability during moments when clarity or control was missing. Understanding this changes everything because it removes the need for self-punishment and replaces it with awareness. When people attack their habits with anger, they unknowingly strengthen them. The nervous system does not interpret force as discipline. It interprets it as threat. When a behavior is tied to relief or emotional regulation, threat only increases the brain's desire to return to what feels familiar. This is why dramatic attempts to quit often fail. The body seeks safety, not improvement. Kaizen begins with a calmer question. Instead of asking why you are incapable of change, it asks what invisible structure is currently shaping your actions. Human behavior is rarely the result of a conscious choice alone. It is guided by environment, emotional state, routine, and identity. A habit survives not because it is powerful, but because it fits seamlessly into daily life. It requires little effort, no interruption, and no conscious decision. Over time, repetition transforms behavior into reflex, and reflex operates outside logical control. The Japanese understood that reflexes cannot be destroyed through force. They must be interrupted gently. Kaizen does not attempt to break habits directly because habits live below awareness. It works by slowing the moment just enough to bring consciousness back into the action. The first stage of change is not control, but observation. When you notice an urge without immediately acting on it, even for a brief moment, you weaken the automatic loop. This observation is not passive, and it is not judgmental. It is a quiet form of attention that separates identity from behavior. You are no longer the habit. You are the observer of the habit. This separation is subtle, but it is the foundation of all transformation. Habits rely on speed and unconscious repetition. They thrive in moments when attention is absent. Kaizen introduces awareness without urgency. There is no demand to change immediately, no pressure to become someone else overnight. Instead, there is a calm recognition of patterns. When does the habit appear? What emotional state precedes it? What environment makes it easier? These questions shift the focus from self-blame to structure. The Japanese believed that when a system is understood, it can be reshaped. Awareness alone begins to weaken the habit because the brain no longer operates on autopilot. The moment behavior becomes conscious, choice returns, even if that choice is small. Kaizen respects the nervous system. It understands that sustainable change cannot be forced without creating internal resistance. Rather than fighting impulses, it studies them. Rather than suppressing desire, it observes it. This approach prevents the cycle of effort and relapse that exhausts so many people. When shame is removed, energy becomes available for change. When urgency disappears, clarity emerges. Kaizen teaches that transformation begins when you stop seeing yourself as the problem and start seeing the system you live inside. Once you understand the system, you gain the power to change it quietly, patiently, and permanently. Modern culture teaches people to chase dramatic change. There is a constant message that transformation must be intense, emotional, and immediate. People are encouraged to make bold promises, take radical action, and reinvent themselves overnight. The Kaizen philosophy views this approach as unstable because it ignores how the nervous system actually works. Sudden change creates internal shock, and shock produces resistance. When resistance appears, the mind unconsciously seeks comfort, and comfort often lives inside the very habit you are trying to eliminate. Kaizen avoids this trap by moving so slowly that fear never has a chance to activate. Change begins at a scale small enough to feel harmless, almost insignificant, and that is precisely why it works. Habits are not stored in logic. They live in emotional memory, body timing, and expectation. This is why understanding a habit rarely makes it disappear. You can know exactly why a behavior is harmful and still feel compelled to repeat it. Kaizen does not attempt to overpower this mechanism. Instead, it redirects it. A 1% change does not threaten identity. It does not trigger the inner voice that says, "This is not who I am." When the step is small, the brain accepts it without resistance. Delaying a habit slightly, reducing its intensity, or changing its context creates a pause in the loop. That pause is subtle, but it is powerful. It creates a moment where awareness can enter. Awareness creates choice, and choice slowly reshapes identity. The Japanese understood that identity is not formed through declarations, but through repetition. You do not become disciplined by deciding to be disciplined. You become disciplined by behaving like a disciplined person, consistently, even in very small ways. Kaizen focuses on process because process shapes the nervous system quietly over time. Goals often create pressure, and pressure creates rebellion. Process creates rhythm, and rhythm creates stability. When a new behavior is repeated daily without emotional struggle, the brain begins to accept it as normal. What once felt like effort gradually feels natural. This is how identity changes without conflict. Kaizen also understands that habits weaken when they lose emotional reinforcement. When a behavior is no longer associated with relief, escape, or reward, its grip loosens. Small changes gradually alter these emotional associations. A habit that once felt comforting begins to feel unnecessary. This shift does not happen suddenly, and it is not dramatic. It happens quietly, beneath conscious awareness. Over time, the old behavior feels out of place. It no longer aligns with how you see yourself. At that point, the habit does not need to be fought. It dissolves because it no longer belongs. The power of Kaizen lies in its patience. It does not rush the nervous system or demand perfection. It allows change to settle naturally. One small adjustment leads to another, and these adjustments compound. What begins as a minor shift in behavior slowly becomes a shift in self-image. You stop saying that you are trying to change and begin to act as someone who already has. This is the moment where habits truly lose their power. Not because they were destroyed, but because they no longer fit the person you are becoming. In many modern cultures, discipline is treated as an act of force. People are taught to push harder, to override their emotions, and to punish themselves whenever they fall short. This approach creates a constant internal battle, where progress depends on motivation and motivation eventually collapses. The Japanese understanding of discipline is fundamentally different. In Kaizen, discipline is not emotional, dramatic, or aggressive. It is quiet, structural, and consistent. It does not rely on willpower, because willpower is unstable. Instead, it relies on design. When behavior is supported by structure, effort becomes minimal, and consistency becomes natural. Kaizen teaches that discipline should never feel violent toward the self. When change feels painful, overwhelming, or humiliating, the nervous system reacts with resistance. Resistance is not a sign of weakness. It is a signal that the system is being pushed beyond what it can sustain. Instead of responding with harsher rules, Kaizen responds by reducing the demand. If a step feels heavy, it is not a failure, it is information. The step is simply too large. By reducing the size of the action, movement becomes possible again. This prevents the cycle of enthusiasm followed by exhaustion that defines so many failed attempts at self-improvement. Japanese discipline emphasizes routine over intensity. A calm routine repeated daily is more powerful than bursts of effort fueled by emotion. When an action becomes routine, it stops requiring negotiation. There is no inner debate, no need to feel inspired. The action simply happens because it is part of the structure of the day. Over time, routine reshapes identity. You do not need to convince yourself that you are disciplined. Your behavior quietly proves it. This is why Kaizen feels gentle while producing profound results. It removes the internal struggle and replaces it with alignment. Another key aspect of Kaizen discipline is the role of environment. The Japanese understood that behavior is heavily influenced by surroundings. When the environment encourages a habit, discipline feels exhausting. When the environment supports change, discipline becomes effortless. Kaizen focuses on removing friction from desired behaviors and adding friction to unwanted ones. This is not manipulation, it is intelligent design. By adjusting surroundings, routines, and cues, behavior changes naturally. The mind no longer feels like it is fighting itself. Instead, it follows the path that has been quietly prepared. Kaizen also rejects the idea that discipline requires constant self-control. Self-control is a limited resource. When it is overused, it collapses. Structure, on the other hand, does not fatigue. Once a system is in place, it continues to function regardless of mood or energy. This is why Kaizen produces long-term stability. Discipline becomes something you live inside, not something you force yourself to perform. Over time, the habit that once required constant resistance loses its place in the system. It is not defeated through struggle, but replaced through consistency. The Japanese approach to discipline creates calm rather than tension. There is no inner critic shouting commands, no cycle of guilt and relapse. Instead, there is quiet progress built through repetition. This form of discipline does not drain you, it strengthens you. As the system stabilizes, the nervous system relaxes. When the nervous system is calm, change becomes sustainable. This is the true power of Kaizen discipline. It does not break habits by force. It renders them unnecessary by building a system that no longer supports them. Kaizen is not built on intensity, motivation, or moments of emotional breakthrough. It is built on inevitability. The Japanese understood that when an action is repeated calmly, consistently, and without internal conflict, it eventually becomes part of one's identity. At that point, effort disappears. What once felt like discipline becomes natural behavior. This is why Kaizen does not promise quick results. It promises permanent change. Instead of asking how fast a habit can be removed, it asks what kind of person you are quietly becoming through daily repetition. Most people believe freedom comes from controlling impulses. But Kaizen teaches that real freedom comes from no longer needing to control them. When a habit aligns with your identity, there is no inner struggle. When it does not, resistance feels automatic. Over time, the behaviors you repeat shape how your nervous system responds to the world. Small, deliberate actions practiced daily recalibrate emotional responses, expectations, and self-perception. Cravings lose urgency, not because they are suppressed, but because they no longer feel relevant. The brain adapts to what is familiar, and Kaizen carefully chooses what becomes familiar. The Japanese believed that mastery was not talent, intelligence, or inspiration. It was loyalty to process. Motivation rises and falls, but rhythm remains. A stable rhythm gives the nervous system a sense of safety, and safety allows change to settle deeply. Kaizen creates this rhythm through repetition that never overwhelms. 1%, improvements accumulate quietly. Days pass without noticeable transformation, and then one day the change becomes undeniable. This is the moment people often misunderstand Kaizen, believing something suddenly clicked. In reality, the transformation has been happening beneath the surface all along. Consistency under Kaizen is not rigid or harsh. It is adaptable and forgiving. Missing a day does not collapse the system, because the system is not built on pressure. It is built on return. The Japanese valued continuity over perfection. What matters is not flawless execution, but the ability to resume calmly without self-judgment. This prevents the emotional spiral that causes most people to abandon change entirely. When consistency is gentle, it becomes resilient. When it is resilient, it becomes unbreakable. Over time, identity begins to shift naturally. You stop describing yourself through the lens of struggle and begin to act from stability. The habit that once felt dominant fades because it no longer fits who you are. It is not defeated, it is outgrown. Kaizen understands that growth is more powerful than resistance. When the system you live inside supports calm, clarity, and deliberate action, destructive habits simply lose their place. They cannot survive without reinforcement. This is the quiet strength of the Japanese system. There is no dramatic victory, no moment of conquest. There is simply a life that becomes easier to live. Kaizen does not demand belief in yourself or faith in sudden transformation. It asks only for patience and consistency. One small action, repeated daily, becomes identity. Identity becomes behavior. Behavior becomes freedom. This is how Kaizen breaks any bad habit, not through force or control, but through steady alignment with the person you are becoming. Real change rarely announces itself. It does not arrive through sudden inspiration, dramatic vows, or moments of emotional intensity. Those moments feel powerful, but they fade quickly, leaving the system underneath unchanged. The Kaizen philosophy teaches something far more enduring. Transformation happens quietly, through the choices you repeat, when no one is watching, when there is no reward, no applause, and no urgency to prove anything. Change begins the moment you stop trying to overpower yourself and start designing a life that supports who you are becoming. Breaking a bad habit is not an act of aggression. It is an act of understanding. When you look closely, you realize that habits only survive because they are supported by your environment, your routines, and your identity. Once those elements shift, the habit no longer has a place to exist. This is why Kaizen does not ask you to fight desire or suppress impulses. It teaches you to make those impulses irrelevant by changing what surrounds them. Over time, the nervous system adapts. What once felt necessary begins to feel optional. What once felt automatic begins to fade into the background. The Japanese understood that discipline does not come from intensity, but from rhythm. A stable rhythm creates safety, and safety allows change to settle deeply into the body and mind. When your system feels calm, there is no need for rebellion. When progress feels gentle, there is no urge to escape. Kaizen respects this reality. It does not demand perfection or constant self-control. It asks only for consistency and the willingness to return. Even when you drift, even when you fall back into old patterns, the practice remains the same. You return calmly without judgment and continue. This ability to return is what makes the system resilient. Over time, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. Your identity shifts without effort. You no longer define yourself by struggle, temptation, or resistance. You begin to act from stability rather than force. The habit that once dominated your attention loses its emotional charge. It no longer feels like a threat or an enemy. It simply no longer fits. At this stage, change feels effortless not because you are stronger, but because the system is aligned. Discipline becomes invisible, and freedom becomes natural. Kaizen reminds us that mastery is not reserved for the talented or the gifted. It belongs to those who are patient enough to trust small steps and consistent enough to repeat them. 1% improvements may feel insignificant in the moment, but over time they reshape your entire relationship with yourself. They build confidence without arrogance, discipline without violence, and progress without exhaustion. This is the quiet strength of the Japanese system. It does not seek to impress, it seeks to endure. As you move forward, remember that you do not need to become someone else to change your life. You only need to become slightly more aligned each day with the person you are already capable of being. Kaizen is not about speed, it is about direction. When direction is clear and movement is steady, transformation becomes inevitable. And one day, without drama or celebration, you realize that the habit that once controlled you no longer has power, not because you destroyed it, but because you outgrew it.